think we had a few more register for the day, but as always, I think people that always come through. But of course, we are recording today, so a recording of this webinar will be on the website from tomorrow. If you want to look at it again or to share it with other people. And for those that are registered and haven't arrived yet today, I'll send the links out to people as well, so you can all see it. But thank you for coming today to our webinar on our Pixel benchmarking service. It's still, I guess it's still a relatively new service, isn't it, Angelo? It's been around you've been running it for what, a good over a year, I think I'd say. Yeah. So it's going there. We're kind of building it up, and there's quite a lot of new developments in here that Andrew is gonna run through today. So I will hand straight over to Andrew. And many of you will already know. For those of you who aren't, I think probably about half of you, I think, have probably signed up already. For the other half of you who are looking to see what's going on, Andrew runs the service for Pixel. He's developed a fantastic benchmarking platform on Power BI, which is, I know those of you who have signed up already, I think the use is pretty good. So people are using it very well already. So Andrew will take you more through what the service involves, what's on there, what the new developments are in the last months, and what the new developments are that we're planning for the rest of the year. So Andrew, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thanks, Adrian. Well, okay, so yeah, as Adrian said, what we're going to run through today is I'm just going to outline what the product is. Then we're going to do a demo of some of the recent updates. We're going to talk about some of the further improvements which are in the pipeline, and then there'll be some opportunity for feedback, and then we'll talk about some of the next steps. Okay, so what is it? So it's basically we take government information from all the different government sources, so MHCRG, for lots of RA and RO related type data and core spending power and council tax and so on. And then we also take information from the DFE in relation to the sort of section 251 data, Ofsted inspections, CQC, all that kind of thing. So what we're doing is we're getting that information, we're sort of bringing it together in one place, which makes it, and then we stick it into Power BI reports, which is then easily digestible. Okay, so we're going to go through some of them shortly, but some of the reports which we have currently we have ones which look at the revenue outturn reports over multi-year. And in there we do things like show what your revenue outturn and your RA budgets have been over multi-years. We show what the cost per head is, how that compares to other regional or alike councils, be it statistical neighbours or any kind of bespoke grouping that you want to do. We also have comparisons against the index of multiple deprivation. We also have reports on core spending power, seeing how that changes, what core spending power is this year, next year, the year after, and also how it's changed over time and is going to change in the coming years. We have council tax comparisons, NMDR, growth above baseline, benchmarks. We also take government local authority borrowing and investments and compare that against other councils and reserves. We also have reports on sales fees and charges. And then, we also do things like compare spend on children's social care against Ofsted inspections. Some other reports associated with children's social care workforce, which we can see comparisons about agency usage, turnover of staff, caseloads per social worker, that kind of thing. We have a similar report, looks and feels exactly the same, but it's for adult social care and Care Quality Commission inspections. They've added some new reports recently about waste management. So we're looking at RO related spend on waste management, but we also then look at DEFRA related performance in terms of tonnages that the different councils are managing and recycling rates and all that kind of thing. We've also recently added in a report on highways related spend, and we also take into account the DFT local road maintenance ratings. And we also have dedicated schools grant balances. So think the best thing to do is I'm going to do a demo of some of them. So I'm going to start off with some of the service performance related benchmarking reports, and then what we'll do is we'll look at some of the funding related ones after that. Okay. Okay, so this is the landing page, which can be got at through the Pixel website, and you can get there just by typing Google Pixel financial benchmarking. And on here, you land on a page that's got all of the different reports on it. So these tiles are basically links to Power BI reports. There's like a user navigation guide. We also have on here, which we're going to look at in a bit more depth, some of the example use cases where all of the data comes from. We also have an improvement log in there and some testimonials. And we also have an archive about some of the previous versions, just in case you should have used a number in a report and you want to get back to it somewhere. Okay, so we're going to start off by looking at the revenue outturn report. So if I click on that, then that opens the session of Power BI. And we have along the bottom, much like in Excel, the different report pages. So the first one it's opened on is RA budgeted time series. And this data goes up to 25-26. And yeah, it reconciles to the government data. But what we're going to do, rather than go through that, I'm going to look at the RO spend one, which is much the same. So the RO spend analysis was published by government in December, and what we have here is RO spend across the nation by all local authorities, by the different RO service types, so adult social care, children's social care, and all that kind of thing. And then we have here a time series, and here we have percentage changes over the period, and so we'll see which areas have had more or less growth across the period. And I can do things like, you know, I can we're going to look at Bradford. And by clicking on there, that's now given me my RO totals over multi-years going back to 2017-18 up to 24-5. And on here, I can just point and click, and I say, okay, well, what's spend been on adult social care? I can see that's been the growth. So that last year in 4-5, we spent £209 million. That's £88 million worth of growth since 17-18, and it was 72% growth across the period. Our children's social care has gone up very significantly. So yeah, you can interact with this report, but it's a time series. You know, you can see just seeing how things have changed over time. Now, the next report, which is then where we start to do comparisons against other alike councils. So it opens up on adult social care, and what we have on here is adult social care actual cost per head of population. Now, I'm going to click onto this filter options thing. That pops out the parameters that you're going to choose. Now, for subscribers, it would automatically default to their council. I'm just going to type in Bradford Fair. Okay, and on here I have all of the different options for comparison. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select against metropolitan councils. So what that's doing is, if I look on this matrix here, I can see that's Bradford, that is the RO spend. We also have on here the population, our total population, which are over adult population. One divided by the other gives an average of cost per head of that, £497. But that's compared to an average across the Met councils of 567. So I can see that Bradford is low cost, and it's 32nd lowest out of the 35th in the cohort. Okay. Now, if I know that that is Bradford's RO cost, and that is the average, if I take one away from the other and then multiply it by the population, I can see that Bradford is spending roughly £30 million less per year than the average of other Met councils pro rata to its size. Okay, so other features on here are, we have on here something that's got the pounds per head of population. So that's the value in 24/5, but that's the same value the year before and the year before and the year before and the year before. So I can see there's been some growth there. And on here, it's also got the ranking selection. So although in 24/5, I can see that it was the 32nd like lowest cost. The year before, it ranked as being the 30th, and then a couple of years before that, it was the 25th. So I can see that the Bradford's adult social care has been going from here roughly, it's been moving down the charts. And I can easily flip through and just confirm that's the case. So if I go for 24/5, and I go the year before, and the year before, and the year before. So all of it's interacting really quickly, but it's given me those values as they related to prior years. Okay, so by the time I got back to 2020, there we are, that's 20th. Okay, so that's, yeah, and then also on here, I have the lowest, average, and highest across the cohort. Okay, so that was looking at Bradford in comparison to Met councils, but I can also click on there, and there's all sorts of other functionality that's in here. So I can say, okay, I'm not interested in Met councils. I want to see how Bradford gets on in comparison to statistical neighbours. So I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to go on to the comparison group, and I'm going to select SIPFA stat neighbours for there. And now what's happened is my cohort has changed from the 35 Met councils to the 16 statistical neighbours, and that's how I'm comparing, how Bradford is comparing against those statistical neighbours. So all of that analysis has just been done really quickly, just by selecting the different cohort. Also, if I wanted to, I could say I'm going to come up with my own bespoke selection. So currently, if I turn that off, I'm looking at everything, but I'm going to just do in fact, I'll start with I'm going to do some selections of just West Yorkshire councils. So I'm going to say, let's include Bradford. And let's have Wakefield, Kirklees. And Calderdale. So what I've done there is these have now all changed to, so the analysis is just looking at those things which I have done a bespoke selection for. So yeah, this, it can also be helpful if you have examples where you have some a council which is in your cohort, which is clearly a big outlier for some reason, like the City of London, for example, where you can select all and then you can exclude. Okay, so that's adult social care, but I can do that same kind of analysis for, and go back to Met councils. And yeah, so we were looking at adult social care at the topmost level, but you can also use it to drill into the next level of the ROs. So if I was to drop that down, you'd see you've got all the next level down. So I can go and click onto learning disability support. And that's now given me, learning disability support being a subset of adult social care. So okay, I can see also on learning disability support that Bradford's relatively low in comparison to others. Okay, and also if I wanted to, I can also drill in further and look and say, okay, well, is it to do with employees? Is it to do with running costs? Is it to do with sales fees and charges or other income? So you can interact with these things to that next level of granularity also. Okay, so that's adult social care, but you can do that same kind of analysis for all other RO categories. So I'm going to get rid of that. And down the left-hand side here, we have children's social care, culture and related, education services, environment and regulatory services, And basically, this is a list of all of the different RO categories that go up to something called the net current cost of service. Okay, so yeah, from there, I'm identifying that Bradford is low cost, but I might go on to children's social care and I'll see that actually that's at the other end of the spectrum. We are high spending in there. So consequently, we then have a totalizer. So rather than having to wade through everything, this page is a summary version where before, when we were looking at adults, we saw we had that £30 million worth of lower spend, £29 million worth of lower spend. And this is the categories for all other RO types. Now, if so I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, well, that reconciles to my RO total for 24-25. These are the different population bases which are being used to do the cost per head comparisons. These are the total savings or additional expenditure which would be required to be at the average of the cohorts of Met Councils, which I'm looking at currently. I can see we're spending £200 million a year less than other Met Councils pro rata to Bradford's size. Okay, but I'm doing that so that that's somewhat informative. But I also notice on here that I've got some services like education services, housing benefits, which are public health, which are grant funded. And so I can quickly do an analysis and say, I want to take those out. Say, okay, well, we're going to go on to the RO service type, click on that. I'm going to take off education services out the analysis. We haven't got fire and rescue. There isn't police services. There isn't public health being grant funded. We'll take out housing benefits as well. Okay, and then from there, I've just done that analysis really quickly, but it's looking at those services which remain, which are not grant funded, but are sort of part of the general fund. So from there, I can reasonably conclude that that those kind of services in Bradford are relatively low cost in comparison to the average of others. Okay, so that's the RO. Now, in addition to that, to go to a further level of granularity, there are other service type reports that we have in here, some of which are new, which I'm going to go through now. So if I go back here, that report was looking at, you can analyze any different sort of RO or RA category. But beneath here, we've also got some specifics associated with children's social care and adults. So I'll open the adults one first. So what that does is opens on the this one happens to open on CQC categories. So I am going to stick, again, it would default to your authority, but I'm going to stick in Bradford. And on there, so I can see that, we've had an inspection not all that long ago. And it was categorized as good with an overall score of 73. And consequently, that is currently the 15th highest of the 106 that have been inspected so far, following the start of the new CQC inspection regime. And on here, I've also got, not only have I got the scores, but it also gives a breakdown as to where things are good or where things require improvement. If it's blue and it's a score of 4, that means it's outstanding. And again, I can do that same kind of analysis, but I can limit it to my region if I wanted to. So I can see the second best score in Yorkshire and Humber. And again, I could bespoke that if I wanted to the councils which I wanted to look at. Okay, in here we also have, this on this report page, we're sticking the cost per head, which we looked at when we were looking at the RO one. And so we can see that relatively low cost, but relatively decent outcomes when it comes to CQC scores. Okay, so there are other report pages on here which are largely replicating what's in the RO report that we looked at further, but it's just drilling down to the next level of granularity. So yeah, given time, I won't go through there, but they are there. And similarly, I've got children's social care and Ofsted. So I'm going to drill into that one. So here you'll notice that it's got a sort of very similar look and feel. Again, we've got a time series, but this time it's taking its data from the section 251 return, which is very similar to the RO return in terms of overall numbers, but it goes to an extra level of granularity. So in here, you can drill into things like residential care or spend on foster care per head, or spend on safeguarding children's social workers per head. So it's got the same kind of analysis. I can say, kind of look at Bradford. And so that's the shape of the section 251 spend over time. And if I look on here, I can have, we've done it in two ways. On here, we have the section 251 spend divided by the ONS mid-year populations. So on here, if I'm looking at again, this is all categories of children's social care related spend. Go look at Bradford. So all of the reports interact in exactly the same way. So once you've got the hang of one, it replicates on the others. So I'm going to look at Met Councils again for consistency. And yeah, I can see from here that was our section 251 net spend on children's. That's the spend per head, ranked 7th highest. And we're spending £46 million more pro rata to size than other Met Councils in 24-25. And I can drill into this and go, okay, well, let's have a look at the description of expenditure. Why are we high? And I can go in. I can see it has very high levels of spend on residential care provision in comparison to others. Other bits on here is we have an analysis because we've got the Ofsted inspection outcomes. What we're looking at there is, go back to. So what this is showing is within the cohort that we're looking at, which is Met Councils, we have some councils which are outstanding, some which are good, some which requires improvement, and some which were inadequate. And you can see on here, if you take the average spend per head of those different categories, you can see that typically the case that services cost more, the less good they are in terms of the inspection outcomes, typically. Okay, then from there, again, we can drill in. We have this section 251 cost by service type. So again, rather than having to go through and flick through all of the different categories of spend, I can come on here and I can find a summary. And again, this can be drilled into. So I can see here, of Bradford's total spend on children's, that was its net current spend per head. So that was its net current spend divided by the population. That was the spend per head. That was the cohort average. That was the rank out of the cohort. And I can see from there we're spending roughly £47 million more pro rata to size on children looked after than other alike councils. And I can drill into that further and say, okay, well, the lion's share of that is down to high levels of residential care provision. So that's the main issue. Okay. And then on the next report page, you've got things like the Ofsted overall effectiveness ratings. So yeah, in here I can see that in Bradford it's relatively high spend, and it had been inadequate at that point in time per its Ofsted inspection. Okay, so again, I won't go further into here, but we have there's a couple of other report pages on there which gives you the categories. So you've got the overall effectiveness rating, the impact of leaders. So these are the different sort of subcategories of the Ofsted inspections. So you can see which councils are good, which ones require improvement, which ones are inadequate, with the dates of the last inspections. And we also have a couple of other reports which have got things like the children looked after rates and children looked after time series. So you can see how children looked after numbers are over time and how they compare to others. Okay, then that's that. So now we're going to look at a couple of new ones. So that was children and adult social care, but one of the recent additions has been we've looked at the waste management data. So I'm going to click into there. And what this does, got similar interaction methodology as the other reports that we were looking at before, but we're looking at waste services instead. So I'm going to click on there. I'm going to look at Bradford. I'm going to limit the class to Met Councils again. Okay, so what we have on here is I can see again Bradford. That was our RO spend. So in 3/4, which was the last year that the DEFRA related data was published. The 4/5 data is just about to be published imminently, but it wasn't quite ready. So on here, yeah, we've got 23/4 data. That was our RO spend. This was our waste tonnages based on information which derives from DEFRA. If you divide one by the other, then you get an all-in cost per tonne of £141, and that is ranking as the 31 lowest out of the 35 Met Councils. And again, using the same kind of maths methodology, if you were looking at the average, which is the average across all Met Councils, and you're taking Bradford's away and multiplying it by the tonnages, then we'd be spending somewhere in the region of £9.7 million more per year if we were at that Met average. Then on the right hand side, so this is the same information shown graphically. And then down here, we've also got some performance data. So I can see that, yes, it's low cost, but it also has relatively low recycling rates in comparison to others. So, that might be a cause for concern. Also, that needs to be remedied. And then on here, we've also got the current collected household waste per household. And again, I can do all sorts of things with that. We were looking at Met Councils, but I could be looking just at in the region, or I could be looking against a bespoke group if I wanted to. Okay, next report on here is we have the waste collection time series. So this is DEFRA related data. So what that's doing is it's showing me the tonnages over time. So I can see that in Bradford, tonnages of the tonnages that have been managed by the service have come down by 20+ thousand tonnes in recent years. And I can see that the cost per head, this is the all-in cost per tonne, sorry, has been relatively static. On here, you've got the RO cost. So it was £30 million in that year. The year before, it's 31 million. And that's how it's split down by waste disposal collection and so on. And then along here, we've got the all-in waste tonnage. So, because you've got some councils which are collection authorities, and you've got others which are disposal, and you've got others which are unitaries that do both. We also have on here the waste disposal time series. So again, this is looking at the whole country in terms of 24 million tonnes of waste annually. I'm going to look at Bradford. So previously we were looking at the collection method. Now we're looking at the disposal method. So we've got the same tonnages, it's the same tonnes which has been disposed of. And on here I can see how the tonnes are being disposed of. So I can see, I'm going to click on there. So the lion's share of it's getting disposed of via incineration from an energy from waste facility. I can see that the amount which is going to landfill has reduced significantly in recent years. And then I can look at the recycle amount, and I can also see that the amount which has been recycled has also come down in the last couple of years. So yeah, that might be something which is of course the concern. Okay, now we also have on here a report page which has got, because some authorities have got waste disposal authorities, i.e. they do the collection, but then they have clubbed together to form a waste disposal authority, which then gets rid of the disposal of the waste on their behalf. There is a specific page for waste disposal authority performance. And there is also another one which looks at the collection and disposal, but of those councils which are, you've got some councils like in the Greater Manchester region, which will do the collection, but then it goes to the waste disposal authority to do the disposal. So there are, this report page provides some further analysis on that. Okay, then, we have also added in a highways and DFT report. So on here, going to the highways and transport. So this opens up on the Department of Transport local road maintenance ratings. So I'm going to select. Yeah, so I can see from here that the road condition in Bradford has been assessed as being, and having an overall rating of amber, a condition scorecard of amber, a spend scorecard of green, and wider best practice scorecard of green. Yeah, now I don't know what the methodologies are, but those methodologies are ones which have been come up with the from the DFT, and the information for it is also accessible through their website, which is basically is sort of a replication of what they've got here on the government website. You can also go into this more detailed reports about the highways and transport related services. So I won't do that now, but that's there. And then next to it, we also have the cost per head, so you can get a bit of a feel for relative spend and relative performance. Now I won't pretend that the RO transport area includes lots of things which aren't necessarily linked to road maintenance. Hence, I haven't put them side by side, but I haven't put them within the same report. But there is some analysis there that indicates if things are an issue or not. Okay, right. So those are most of the service type reports. That we also have in, I won't go into it at the moment, but we have a report which focuses specifically on sales fees and charges. It's derived from the RO return, but it's it allows you to do analysis to identify if there's some of your service areas are not generating as much income as other alike councils, and yeah, that can be found through there. Now there's something which we're working on at the moment, which is going to be it's like an executive summary. So it's rather than having to go through all of these different reports to find where there might be some excess spend issues or underspend issues or performance issues, we are going to be adding something onto here imminently, which is like a sort of performance on a page. So I'm going to give you a sort of a sneak preview of that. So if we were going back to the RO data, I mentioned that £20 million of lower spend than others on here. On here, we've also got, this is what the rank is of the cohort, and then this is what the rank was last year. So I can see from that pretty easily that children's social care is the area of excess spend. adult social care, on the other hand, is very low spend. I can see that this was the spend per head rank in 24/5. That was it the year before. So it's sort of going in the right direction for children's. Then I can also see that, you know, adults was previously the 30th lowest, and it's now the 32nd lowest. On here, I've also got things, the highlights from the adult social care CQC inspection, the Ofsted inspection, highways, and the recycling. And shortly, we will also be adding on some data associated with housing and homelessness. And also on here, we have the population and the index of multiple deprivation rank. Again, all of this will can change by selecting, you know, if I was going to do it in comparison to statistical neighbours or regions or a bespoke group, I could do that too. You know, if I were a county and I was Lincolnshire, I stuck Lincolnshire in, it's going to give us the answer, so I'll do that. So Lincolnshire in comparison to Shire counties, it's got, you know, an outstanding Ofsted, highways of amber, not yet inspected for adult social care, recycling rates which are, yeah, probably above average. I think we're going to stick something on there that's contextual. Okay, so this type of report is going to appear imminently, and we're also going to have a similar kind of one for funding, core spending power, council tax, DSG, reserves. So we're going to have two side by side, one which is on service performance and another is on the sort of inputs that you get from spending and also the strength of reserves and otherwise. Okay. So that's that. Those are the service related ones. Now I'm going to have a quick look at some of the funding. So I'm going to now look at core spending power. So this is although we've had the core spending power report for some time, obviously we've updated it for the settlement. So I'm going to click into core spending power. So on here, we have the national core spending power that reconciles to the government's tables. If I go on to, I'm going to select Bradford. And so that is, that was the core spending power of 581 million. And it's going to go up to 856 million by 28/29. Now, on here, I also have showing the percentage change. So I can see we've got 47% increase across the period, and that compares to a Met average of 31%. If I was to take Bradford off, see that the national average is a 24% increase across the period. It also has on here the base year, but I can amend that base year and move it forward if I'm only interested in how it's moving from 25/26. Okay, and I can also slice between whether it's government funded or it's from council tax. So you can see that's the change in government funding, or that's the change in council tax. Okay, and then yeah, so it works in much the same way as the RO expenditure, but we're just looking at a different core spending power instead. Okay, so on here we have again, it's got the same look and feel, but we're talking about core spending power and doing it on a per head basis. I'm going to look at so Bradford. I'm going to look at comparisons against Met councils again. I'm going to start back in 24/5. So from there, I can conclude that that was Bradford's core spending power. That was the core spending power per head of 1,035. That compares to a Met average of 1,141. So we were the 31st lowest ranked in terms of core spending power. And that's shown there. Now, yeah, as I outlined before, you know, Bradford is going to have 47% growth across the period. So as I run through the years going forward to the full implementation of the fair funding review, then we'll see that Bradford will be going up the charts in relation to its core spending power per head. On here, we've also got the rank of the index of multiple deprivation. So if I go back to 24/5, I can see that, yes, it was very low in terms of core spending power per head. We also had really low, high levels of deprivation. So what we're going to do is on the next report page, we had how that that's shown graphically. So I'm going to show Bradford. I'm going to compare us against Met Councils again. So on here we have the most deprived councils per the IMD on that axis, and on this axis we've got the spend per head. Sorry, core spending power per head. If I go back to 4/5, you can see there's a clear outlier here, and that was Bradford. And if you're looking at Bradford's 1,035 and you're comparing it to the trend line, which is Sandwell and Rochdale, which are not quite as deprived, but have very similar demographics. You're looking at 1,035 less 1,200 odd. So I've done this before, but it's like £190 differential between those two. And then when you multiply that by the population of Bradford, 560 odd thousand, you get to, it's basically, Bradford would have been getting somewhere in the region of £106 million per year more if it were at that trend line than what it has been doing. And then, the government's made a commitment to contribute more towards deprivation. And then as we walk through here, we can see what happens over the course of the implementation of the Fair Funding Review. So we notice that gap closes and closes and closes further. So although at that point Bradford is still not at the trend line, it's clearly not an outlier to the same extent before. Now, to get from down here to up here, that obviously means that you've got to have a higher level of growth. So this report page is then looking at the growth per head for all local authorities. Okay, and again, I'm just going to limit that to Met Councils. And I can see on there that, Manchester has got the highest level of growth across the period, followed by Bradford and Coventry. And Trafford and Stockport and Solihull, not such high levels of growth. I can also drill into and say, okay, well, is it government funded or is it locally funded? So if it's the government related, i.e. business rates, everything which is included in fair funding, you can see that's the shape of things associated with government funding, and that is the shape of things associated with council tax. Okay, we've also added in a report on here where we've got exceptional financial support. So like Bradford just happens to be a council which has got exceptional financial support, and there are lots of others. So this report page is showing how exceptional financial support has grown in recent years. So it didn't really used to have very much, but back in 23-24 it got up to £1 billion nationally, and then 1.5 billion nationally for 4/5, and it's going to be slightly higher than that in 6/7. And on here we have the different authorities that have made requests for exceptional financial support. And then, so that's the time series, and then next to it we have another report which has got the by local authority, same look and feel as many of the other reports. So that's core spending power. Okay, then some other ones which we have on here are we have ones which compare council tax, NNDR growth, reserves, which is new, so I'll focus on that one. We've got some borrowing investments as well, and dedicated schools grant balances. So I'll briefly show you the council tax one. Again, it has the same kind of look and feel as all the others. So if I click on there, what it opens up with is the council tax band D comparisons. And again, I'm going to look at Bradford. And what that's telling me is that's the band D charge in 5.6, and it's the 24th lowest out of the 36 Mets. And it increased by 9.99% in 25.6. We also have on there the average. So if you've got, that's Bradford's 1,942 was the average of the cohort. We also have things like the total value raised from council tax on here. So that was the band D comparisons. We also have works in much the same way, but this is instead the amount of council tax raised per head comparisons and how things have changed over time. And in this report, we also have things like the numbers of LCTS claimants. So there's just a time series of that over years. So if I were looking at Bradford, I can see that there's been a reduction in the numbers of LCTS claimants. I can see how it's split between pensioner and working age. Okay. Yeah, we have another report on there which has got an NDR. So given time, I won't go into that one. I've got one associated with borrowing and investments. So this is showing borrowing over time. So yeah, I can see that Bradford's borrowing was relatively low, and then it got into a situation where it required exceptional financial support, and that's then resulted in its borrowing going up quite significantly. And on the next page, I can say, yeah, that's by the original. This one was by the type of borrowing. The next one was by local authority. But then if you do a borrowing per head comparison, I can see that despite having a very significant increase in borrowing in recent years, up to 726 million, the borrowing per head remains relatively low in comparison to other Met councils. Similarly, if I was to look on the Treasury Management investments, it works in exactly the same kind of way, except for it's Treasury Management's investments rather than borrowing. And we have an investments per head, which Bradford isn't getting anything, but works in exactly the same way. Okay, last couple of ones then. So yeah, we also have on here dedicated schools grant balances. So we can see how dedicated schools, how those reserve levels have changed over time. So this is the national picture of DSG balances. So it used to be a surplus of 500 odd million pounds in 15-16. By the end of 4-5, that had gone up to a deficit of 3.6 billion. This is a net deficit of 3.6 billion, forecast to increase to 4.8 billion by year end. And I can look at whichever authority I want to, and I can see that's the shape of Bradford. So it's not gone into deficit yet, but it's forecast to in 5-6. And then similar kind of analysis, but just on DSG balances and DSG balances per pupil. Okay, so a new report which we've added in is on reserves. So again, same look and feel, but here we're looking at reserves per head. So obviously this would be useful for things like assessments of your resilience in comparison to others. That's the shape of Bradford's reserves, and you can filter it by reserve type. So what is the unallocated and other earmarked reserves? So these ones which are sort of the council reserves, and then you've got other ones on here which are public health ring fenced, and schools reserves which are also ring fenced. So I can interact with those as I like. And then I've got also reserves per head comparisons. So if I'm again looking at okay, so on here, yeah, I can see the reserves totals. Again, the reserves per head. So I can see that Bradford's fairly moderate, a bit on the low side. And then if I look at the reserve types, I'm particularly interested in unallocated and other earmarks. I can see what it's in the relatively low end, and so I'll probably do with boosting its reserves somewhat. I know there's all sorts of reasons why I have reserves, but as a generality. Okay, so yeah, that is mostly it. All of that different type of analysis is going to be, again, we're going to stick it onto an executive summary, which is going to be a core spending power and funding on a page, which will look and feel much like the service related expenditure on a page, but it's going to be related to the funding side instead. Okay, so last things I'm going to show you are yeah, this is just the methods which we're going to use to keep subscribers informed of changes. So we have an update log. So when we started last year, we said that we were planning on developing things further as we went through the year. So we're going to have a quick look at the update log. I'm going to have a look at some use case examples. So on here, if I click into there, what it opens on is an update log. So if I go back to last July when we started doing this, each month we'll stick on an update of what's happened, of the improvements that have been made in the last month. So it's either new reports which have been created or updates that we've added in relation to the data. So, you can see on there, we've created new borrowing investments reports back in August. We created new sales fees and charges reports. We updated information in relation to census. We updated information in relation to the Section 251 publication. So each month there's quite a lot of additional improvements which have been made. Here we have the prior webinar that we did back in November. This is a list of all the improvements that we've made since. And what I'm going to do is, shortly we'll be adding on the core spending power, the exceptional financial supports are there for March. We'll also be adding on the Pixel performance on a page in here for March. And in subsequent months, each time we've got an update, I'll just do a 10-minute short video that we'll just add on to the website, and then you can sort of look at that at your leisure. So each time you come in, is anything new, and so you can keep yourself up to date with improvements. On here, we've also got some use case examples. So hopefully I use this kind of information a lot in my work, and on here we've got like a list of the different use cases that we've found for it. So to inform value for money assessments, to update, if you're doing things like local government reorganisation, and you want to know the financial situation of some of the councils that you might be joining with, you can use the type of information we've talked about to inform yourselves about that. We've used some of the information in exceptional financial support requests. We've used some of the borrowing and investments data to highlight areas where there's other entities that have got very high levels of treasury management income. We've used the information in things like budget books, which are provided to members to give context about the council. We've used it to, in response to government consultations, we've used it to identify areas where we have low sales fees and charges in comparison to others. And that's then led to investigations to why not. It's then led to some further policy changes. So that's some of the use case examples. We also have on here yeah, if you're ever unsure as to where the data's come from, this data sources and notes tells you. Then it's got links to the sources of the data. So you can see, when earlier on we were looking at the DFT local road maintenance ones data, that's from there. The DEFRA waste tonnage data from there, and it tells you when things will update as well. Okay, so they are the use cases and the updates. Then last thing is, we have some further improvements which are in the pipeline. So we're going to add on some data associated with housing and homelessness. We are planning on adding some information associated with a local outcomes framework. I've got some data associated with home to school transport, so that'll work in much the same way as the children's section 251 data, but it'll be in relation to home to school transport. Well, I mentioned that we're going to add on these Teams improvements. Okay, so last couple of things then. So we always welcome feedback and the identification of other areas for improvements. So if you come across a requirement for something, or that something's not quite working as you think it should, or you say it would be helpful if the information also had this in, let us know about it, and we will endeavour to add it in. Then next steps are so just to let everyone know, so existing subscribers, just to be aware that subscription renewals would start from the 1st of April 2026, and if you're planning on subscribing again in the next financial year, if you let us know in advance of then, that would be helpful, because otherwise the Microsoft licenses will cease, and so will your access. Now, other things to say are that we're really pleased with the developments. We're really pleased with the way things have gone over the course of the last year, and we hope you are too. We think it's got lots of application for lots of local authorities. So we're trying to now develop it further and push it out more to other local authorities. Now it's getting more and more polished. If anyone's interested in subscribing or wants a bespoke demonstration about what it means for their authority, let us know, and we'll happily arrange that. We're going to continue to improve the Pixel financial benchmarking site, so there'll be lots of additional information on there. And also, we are we're going to be doing some sessions at an events stall at Public Finance Live. So if anyone's there, then come and say hello to us. Okay, right then.
Brilliant, thanks, Andrew. I think there's one question in the chat for you, I think, from Emma. If you can see that.
Yes. So this is from Emma. So is there a way of keeping your authority as the default rather than all? Yes, there is. It automatically defaults using your email to your authority. Now it doesn't for me, because I'm demonstrating and I'm using everyone, but the way that the system works, it takes your email and it recognises you as being at the council that you're at, and so things are automatically highlighted when you go in as your authority.
Mine doesn't seem to do that.
Okay, what authority are you at?
Dudley.
Dudley. Okay. Well, if you want to stay on at the end, or I'll give you a call afterwards.
That'd be great.
We'll see. Okay.
Right. Any other questions, comments, suggestions?
I've just got one regarding the council tax that we picked up on. Obviously, as a unitary authority with fire, we've got our Band D charge.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily compare to others, or it may compare more likely to some other unitary authorities, but if we're wanting to measure sort of council tax charges in the southwest, for example, you've got like Devon, you've got the Devon charge, you've got the district charge, you've got the Devon and Cornwall Fire Authority. So it doesn't actually, when you're trying to do it on a regional basis, it doesn't actually have a like-for-like basis. So that's just something that we,
it'd be interesting that it uses the excluding parish precepts data.
Obviously, when you're looking at our whole charge, it just doesn't, when you're comparing the bandies, even with unitary authorities in certain areas, they may not have the fire function as well It just doesn't. So I mean, it's something we've always done manually each year anyway. But it'd be nice to sort of see a system that might do that.
Yeah. I'll have a look in that, because it's the kind of thing that is often published, isn't it? I think we just took the ex-parish precepts because we thought that would be the one which would be most akin to being comparable.
Yeah.
But I'll look into that.
Okay. And I think similar to Emma, we do have to go in and select Cornwall each time. It doesn't just come up as the default either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, we'll suss that out then.
Okay.
Great
stuff. Okay, Andrew, fantastic. If that's it, we'll wrap up there. Just a reminder that there'll be a recording on the website from tomorrow. Any questions, ping them over to me or over to Andrew. But thanks for coming along. Thanks for listening and taking part. That's brilliant. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everybody.
Great. That's all.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adrian. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Cheers, and thank you. Thanks. Bye now. Bye bye.